Welcome back. You are tuned into another episode of The Last Word on Rugby. It's been a funny 72 hours since the URC semi-finals. Obviously, the Bulls victorious in a great match. The Stormers just pipped by Leinster in also a hard-fought clash. But we look to the Springboks first. Yes, we kind of expected Rassie Erasmus to announce a squad after those semi-finals. They basically have a couple of weeks to fine-tune things for that Barbas opening match and also that SAA Zim game. But the news of Tony Brown coming from New Zealand, signing him, announcing him for 2028 wasn't expected at all. That big squad of Rassie, maybe because the Bulls are still playing in that final on that weekend. Maybe a big squad was expected, but guys, I was blown away by all those junior box in that squad. I expected some uncapped URC guys, definitely, but the junior box in that squad, it shows that they are looking at things beyond the 2027 Rugby World Cup. Now, with me to chat all these things, John Goliath and then Mike Greenaway. Mike, since you've been on this, yes, like I didn't expect that Tony Brown news.
Yeah,
Where do you think that fits into this whole
yeah,
2026 season and what it
yeah,
means for the Boks ahead of the greatest rivalry tour?
yeah. I wonder if Tony Brown himself was a little taken aback by the timing of it.
Yeah.
He might have wanted that to, the New Zealand Rugby Union just to sit on that for a little while, but I think they wanted to come out and make a little bit of a psychological blow there. It's like uh, it's like the first sort of salvos across the Springbok bow ahead of the greatest rivalry tour is we've got Tony coming back to us. I think there was a little bit of that involved there. Yeah, look, it is a surprise and it's not a surprise because if we remember 4 months ago, when there was this huge speculation that Tony was going to go to the All Blacks and try and get out of his Springbok contract. That was when Scott Robinson got the sack. And there was this feeling that whoever was going to come in would want Tony to come across to the All Blacks. And I'm sure they probably did. And Jamie Joseph, had it been had he won that battle for the All Black job, maybe Tony, they're very good friends, but as it stands, Tony said back then, I would love to coach with the All Blacks, but I'm in a 4-year contract with the Springboks, um, and I'm going to see it through. It's he's a man of integrity. He's a gentleman. But he said then, if I, at the end of my Springbok contract, if I'm offered a job with the All Blacks, I will jump at it. And that's precisely what's happened. So will it affect us the next 2 years? Look, I mean, while we've got Tony Brown, let's cash in. He's a fantastic coach. He's already given us 2 years great service. Our attacking game has grown. Um, yeah, hopefully we can win a World Cup thanks to Tony Brown's influence. Then, yeah, look at the end of that World Cup next year. So many of the Springbok players will be moving on. It'll be a start of a new era. Tony will take a little bit of intellectual property across to the All Blacks in 2028, but I don't think it will be a disaster. Players will be moving on at the box, plus the game moves on.
Yeah, and if you look at Tony Brown and you look at the amount of youngsters in this current squad, especially if you look at the fly-ups like Vusi Moyo, um, the Siyayas of this world. So what they're going to do now is these lighties are going to be exposed to Tony Brown over the next couple of years. So
Mhm.
they're going to squeeze whatever intellectual capacity they can get out of Tony Brown and milk it until they get to the World Cup, and then maybe, when somebody else will take over in terms of that attack. So for me, it's not surprising seeing all these youngsters, and we're probably going to see them over the next 2 years, all these youngsters in these squads, so they can actually learn and get the most out of their time with a guy like Tony. Because if you look around the country, who is actually that Tony Brown who can step into the void where you have that sort of one of the best attacking rugby minds is in the world at the moment. Who's going to step into that void? So from now on until the final whistle of the 2027 World Cup final, you will see a lot of youngsters there, man, the Rassie milking sort of the all he can out of Tony.
Yeah, look, I was pretty surprised by that announcement. But also pretty happy with the craftiness of some rugby culture commentators on Twitter, X. Someone put up something. SA Rugby must throw a Uno reverse card at New Zealand Rugby by announcing Scott Robertson for after 2028. So there was a bit of fun around that. But also, you must question just the timing of New Zealand rugby and just that little bit of let's spice things up ahead of rugby's greatest rivalry. To see how the fans react because I bet that's gonna sell more tickets that just that little bit of spice added, but also just to say to the box that yes, you might have the guy now, but we will have him post the World Cup. John, you've touched on the youngsters coming through. Yes, like it's plenty of them. Some of them must still go 21 uncapped players to name the number. Some of them must still go to the World Rugby Under 20 Championship, the Junior World Tournament. But first, they'll get a taste either against the Barbas, a strong core of Barbas players announced for that match in Gqeberha. But then some will also turn out for the SAA side. I'm especially excited about Vusi Moyo, where he runs out. Andre is not available, so it's Mane at fly off potentially. And then who's the backup fly off? No Chris Smith included. Very unlucky to miss out. But then Vusi's there. And then Luan Gilumir, who we know can play 10 and 15. Zeketelos, Siyaya as well. So quite interesting where they're going to fit in. I think that was our discussion last week, the selection conundrum of just where these youngsters will fit in, especially looking at that Barbas game and giving them a higher level taste of rugby.
Yeah, look, I think the SAA game is really earmarked for a lot of those guys, and we don't know exactly how Rassie is going to fit them all in. We look forward to that with interest. Yeah, Zimbabwe, I think, will be a reasonable test for those guys as well. But as John had said earlier, I think a lot of what Rassie is doing is getting all those young guys involved in the Springbok setup, where they rub shoulders with all those senior bocks, where they get exposed to all the Springbok systems and the Springbok culture, and of course to Tony Brown, who is the perfect guy to work with all of those guys. But just on the squad, guys, I was interested to see how many of those senior guys who were injured in the United Rugby Championship and injured in Japan are now seemingly available. These guys, even Etzebeth was only supposed to be playing towards the end of the year. I see he's in the mix. Yeah, look at it. Peter Steph du Toit is another one that we You know, we talk about this injury crisis at the Springboks, and I think it's just something. It's a talking point. Oh, another injury, another injury, and I don't think the injury crisis is anywhere near as bad as it's made out to be. It's we tend as South Africans sometimes to be alarmist. Oh, how are we going to put a team on the field? But luckily, so many of these guys that are on the injury list, they're coming back in a staggered kind of fashion. And a lot of those guys, I would think, kind of saw out there whatever domestic competitions they were in happily in cotton wool because the Springboks is what really matters to them. And I know that sounds like I'm casting aspersions on their integrity, but I'm not surprised to see a lot of those guys on the injury list now in the Springbok squad.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been an update on. We'll probably get one in next week, like who's actually fit and available or who's just around the camp. But yeah, Mike, I think you make good points there. For me, it's going to be about managing because the core, not even the core, like I would say about 80% of the Springboks' main squad is probably over the age of 32, 33, where they're coming towards sort of the end of their careers over the next 2 years. So managing those players going to be very important. What is going to be interesting though is their preseason fitness camps, which was last year a big talking point as I think Cheslin Colby says it was probably the worst experience of his rugby career in terms of how they were put through their paces. And Rassie said then afterwards, that's what's going to happen from now on, because you're sitting with an aging squad, and these guys actually have to show that they are physically still able to play the sort of rugby that the Boks play, which is not only um, high attrition and with a playing up front and collisions and physicality, but now also being able to run around with the ball and being able to make those key passes and offloads around the back. So yeah, I would love to be a spectator when it comes to those fitness tests over the next few weeks.
Yeah, hopefully Mike will be able to tell us a bit more about it. Seeing that he is at Thursday, I think it is Thursday, yeah. That he's going to be at the Bok training. So yeah, I look forward to hearing more about that and just small things that I want to see in terms of how guys like Batu Slekane and then Siba Mahase, Paul de Villiers. You guys spoke about that Tony Brain, how they drain the Tony Brain over the next couple of weeks. And then hopefully if they get a look in for the Nations Championship, how those youngsters, the uncapped ones, continue to learn and feed off not just of Tony but Rassie in terms of what he wants them. Look, he is the first one to say that he doesn't want them to come in there wild-eyed and feeling that they must be on this level and that level. But it is going to be interesting to see if they can keep up and maintain that URC form should they get an opportunity with the box, whether it's with the SAA or Baba's squad. Mike, I don't know how you feel about those names that I mentioned, and do you feel there's at the back? I think the back line it's got a lot of exciting guys there, but are they as close as to the team as guys like your Batus and Sibas and Paul de Villiers?
Yeah. Sayaya is one for me that I think he is so talented. That he might be able to seamlessly step up now another level. I mean, that guy made his debut for the Sharks in an away game. I can't remember if it was the Ospreys or what, Scarlet or one of those teams. And this was his first time he'd ever played at senior level. Um, And you play at those Ospreys, all those Welsh grounds, those small grounds where it is so intimidating, it's so loud, so noisy. And what does he do? He's the player of the match. Next week again, also when the Sharks overseas, he did the same thing again. He moved from fullback to fly off, scored a try. I mean, the guy has just got champion written all over him. I think that is one guy in particular that I think Rassie will be happy that good enough is old enough. That is one guy I would earmark for that we will see at some stage at Springbok level, not just SAA level.
For me, I'm curious to see sort of the profile of player who's actually going to replace Kwagga Smith on the bench, because I know Kwagga Smith is such a key player for the Springboks, and that's why I think it's going to be probably a bit of a battle between Paul de Villiers and Siba Mahashe. Two totally different players in terms of their profile, but if you put them together, they
It's
actually
Kwagga.
it's Kwagga. They're very good, Paul de Villiers, very good on the ground, low center of gravity, very good on the ground. Siba Mahashe, explosive, lots of
Physical.
pace, physical, can pass the ball left and right, beautiful offloading skills. So it's going to be a toss-up between those guys, I think, for the Barbars match. Who's probably going to come off the bench? I mean, we might even see Paul de Villiers start that game. You never know. One of them could start, but for me, who's Rassie gonna earmark to be that explosive impact player? Is he gonna go with a guy who's good on the ground, or the guy who's explosive with ball in hand?
Yeah. Guys, and I think we've been raving about all these youngsters and how they slotted into the URC and just what they can potentially bring to the national setup. But look at the recalls. Who would have thought that a season in Japan, a couple seasons in Japan could revive the careers of Lucanio Am and Faf de Klerk. Suddenly they back in the mix. I would have, and I'll say this bluntly, that they would have been out for me. There are so many youngsters coming through, and they just made a step up this season, the last two seasons. I mean, someone who's unlucky, again in my eyes, Henko van Wyk at the Lions, and he plays that same role that Lucanio plays. But it also shows, because of the 21 uncapped players, you need a hand like Lucanio Am at the back to guide some of these guys. And I think that's probably exactly Rassie's thinking, but also knowing that he knows what he's got in Lucanio, in Faf, and how their careers have been revived by just going to Japan. And it's good to see that just a change of scenery can do that for a player who formerly has been seen on the last bits of his international career.
Yeah, look, I was surprised, especially with sort of Lucanio looks come off with. We have had a couple of injury problems. I do think that you've got a little bit right there, that they'll be there in a mentorship kind of role. It's good to have those old World Cup winners around. Yeah, I tell you what, the guy that I was really pleased to see talking, and it's not quite a recall, but because Carlos Sardi has been in various alignment camps over the years, but never quite made it. But I think that guy, I'm very pleased to see him there. What he has done at Bordeaux has been actually remarkable. It seems like he's finally reached his potential. I mean, you look at that guy. You look at his thighs, and you understand why he once got stuck in an aeroplane seat. I mean, he cannot sit in an economy seat on an aeroplane. He's just too big. And it seems like, he was at the Lions, and there was so much potential there. Then he had a short period at the Sharks, so it hasn't quite worked out for him. But he went to that setup in France at Bordeaux. And something that the coaching staff have done there has just taken his game to another level. And they're not shy in France to say that he is a cornerstone of why Bordeaux were the Champions Cup champions. So good to see that he's been rewarded.
There's a lot of depth in the front row. I mean,
Mhm.
at tight
That's
end,
great,
there's
yeah.
just I mean, the line is around the corner at this point, and everybody could start. If there's a World Cup final tomorrow, there's like 3 or 4 guys that can actually start who won't let
Mm.
you down, and
Mm.
that's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But one concern is still the hooker position, where I think the Springboks are very thin in terms of quality operators. If you look at Malcolm Marx, the best in the world, not sure what his status is. Will he be playing against the Barbarians? How long is going to be out for? And then you've got Johan Grobbelaar, who's had an amazing season, probably a bit of a breakthrough season. I think he, towards the end of the year last year, on the Springboks' end of year tour, was actually where he showed that he actually can perform at international level. And you've got those two, and then after that, you've got the youngsters coming through like Andre Goventer, who I thought had a top
Mm.
URC campaign.
Yeah.
He started a bit shakily. Remember those games against the Sharks where his line-out throwing, I mean, it probably was a bit of a system failure as well, but his line-out
Yeah,
throwing was
yeah.
great. But towards the end of the season now, line-out throwing decent, and then he is carrying so well.
Mm.
An explosive ball carrier, and that is what you need as a hooker.
Yeah. Look, he's steadily getting to speaking about his ball carries, he looks out and out like his dad, in his
Right?
playing days.
Mm.
Yes, like
Oh,
not afraid to take up the ball, but
yeah.
also very clever in his running lines. He's
Yes,
not just a
yes.
guy that's gonna bustle into the first defender that's ahead of him. He actually checks for the gaps, where there's like a soft shoulder to run to, and I think that's become quite crucial for ball carrying forwards. We know the Boks have always been seen as the run into the first guy you see and flatten him kind of team. But seeing how players are adapting to those things, looking for the weak shoulder between a potential double hit and squeezing between those two players. And Andre Juguventer loves doing that off the top of lineouts. So yeah, for him, JJ Kotze, opportunities, and Esetu Nebelele, also a promising young hooker, that could eventually make his mark. But I'm with you on that, John. The hooker position, I think that and lock. I don't see any youngish locks coming through. If you look at that box squad that was announced, so
Mm.
that and lock, apart from Riley Norton, and then Batu, who could potentially end up as a utility forward. I don't see young locks, and that maybe can be a bit worrying, especially looking at speaking to that age profile of South Africa's locks,
Mm.
post this year and then post 2027. So yeah, a couple of crucial gaps to fill in the box squad. Maybe we'll see some things with the Babas and SAA games. That's about 2 weeks away. Well, a week and a half if we're listening to the podcast on Thursday. And then it's full on into the international season. Of course, Rassie will announce his test squad. This is just a preliminary warm-up, Baba's SAA squad, but he will name his test squad after the URC final, after those games, on that weekend, the last weekend in June, of course. So we're looking forward to what's gonna come out from the box after the SAA Babas game. And we'll also have our eyes fixed on Friday night, where the Bulls, Friday the 19th, where the Bulls will take on Leinster in Dublin. We are going to move over to that game now. But before we do, if you haven't yet, click that like button on our channel on YouTube at the Clutch ZA, subscribe, and then share this podcast as we bring you the latest rugby news. Now, Mike, you obviously been following the Bulls. What a way to get past another semi-final, 100% record when it comes to the second last playoff game. What can we expect from the Bulls after that crucial win?
Yeah. Yeah, and just going to that win at halftime, not many would have been backing the Bulls to win that game,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit earlier in that first half at 21-3, and the way the Warriors' backs were just carving up the Bulls' defense was worrying. And just Franco Smith, we need to talk a little bit about him. Sorry, in terms of Tony Brown leaving, I'm wondering if that isn't a like for like replacement. But once the Bulls sorted out their defense against those Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu, the way they were just managing to get through almost every time they touched the ball, um, and I think it was really the Bulls forwards that eventually got them on top of that game and over the line. But yeah, look, I mean, Johan Ackerman, the poor guy was almost in tears after that game. He was so happy, he was so proud. I mean, that's when you think it's gone, and then your team just suddenly pulls off a second half performance like that. Um, yeah, and interesting for me is that they haven't stayed over there. They were in Edinburgh, sorry, for that semi-final. Edinburgh to Dublin is like it's a half an hour flight. And I think their thinking there is not that long ago. In fact, the entire month of April, that squad spent the month in the UK and Ireland and a little bit of France. They had a lot of time overseas. And the consultation, I believe, with Ackerman and the senior players was, let's not have another couple of weeks in the UK. Let's get home. Let's have a little bit of sleeping in our own beds. Um, let's do some preparation at Loftus. Let's recharge our batteries and then go over instead of another week in an overseas hotel. And he's given the players 3 or 4 days off, and then they'll start. They'll have 2 sessions. I think it's on Friday of this week, and then they'll fly out Monday or Tuesday, play Friday, and hopefully their batteries are recharged.
I'm telling you now, Mike, if that final was in Paris, they would have stayed the 2 weeks in Paris.
Gone to the south of France again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they played to lose or somebody, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. No, I actually think the two semis followed a similar pattern in terms of the fast starts by Glasgow and Leinster, and then
Mm.
the Bulls, to the credit, and I know Johan Ackerman is a Kerkman, says they say in the NG Kerk style. He's a Kerkman, so he probably didn't swear, but there
Too
was
much.
probably some harsh words at halftime to try and get them back into the contest, and it worked. But for me, it showed that for them, the difference between the Stormers and the Bulls on the day were the quality of the replacements, where the Bulls had some big bruises and
Mm.
experience coming off that bench. I mean, you see Marco van Staden, Kobus Wiese coming off the bench,
Mm.
Stedman Khan,
Bokalo.
Wilco Low coming off the bench,
Mm.
compared to the Stormers with all the injuries they have and not having Kobus Reinach, Sasha, all those guys. So the Bulls had the luxury, and those guys did their job in that second half, where the Stormers, they just didn't have that little bit of extra quality and experience, maybe, because the Leinster for me was there for the taking.
Yeah.
Leinster was
Mm.
definitely there for the taking, and if the Stormers were at full strength, I think they would have got to the final, and we would be sitting here looking forward to a Cape Town Stadium final. But credit to the Bulls, they will be going over to Dublin, and I think they've got a massive chance. They've got a massive chance of winning the title. They've been this is their fourth final now, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
No, yes, yes. Will it be fourth time lucky? That's the
Yeah, will it
question.
be fourth time lucky? Exactly.
Never
And they're
mind
playing
third
next
time.
year. Yeah, the last year they were absolutely blown away
Yeah.
in the final. But I think
Mm.
this season against this Leinster team is not invincible anymore. So they can actually go there with confidence.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I agree with you. The Bulls, they can do this. They can follow the same blueprint that they've been following. Just ensure that they start fast. Unlike the Stormers, they kicked out that discipline errors by halftime. The Stormers just continued with it. 47th minute yellow card, and then obviously the last 12 minutes, two yellow cards, one that was upgraded to a red. So discipline against Leinster. You can't face them with 13 or 14 players at any stage in a match. So the Bulls have done well to cut out ill discipline and unnecessary errors in that second half against Glasgow, and more of the same for the men of Pretoria. More of the same. Be clinical, physical. Um, the Stormers saw when they took the ball up through Evan Roos, Andre Guvente, them, they made it over the gain line. Leinster's rush isn't or the be all and end all. It's not the alpha and omega. So I feel the Bulls stand a pretty good chance if they use their bruises correctly and they stick to the game plan that has been working
Set
for them.
piece,
Yeah. Set piece, domination,
scrum,
that is what the Stormers
ball.
did. Just use your chances and you can go
Yeah.
and beat Leinster. Also, we ask that we plead that the referees watch Leinster at the breakdown. That's all we ask for. Watch them
Ollie,
and we'll
Ollie,
see a different game. Holia.
Ollie.
Guys, but we still have another episode to speak on everything about the Bulls and that final. We'll be back, of course, next week with another episode of The Last Word on Rugby. We will build up to that Bulls game and we will build up to the Barbas and the SAA game for the South African squad. Of course, Thursday we'll hear from Rassie Erasmus just how the first training camp went up in Johannesburg. We will hear all about who's been making the fitness tests and who's been uh, not doing it and struggling like some folks did last year. And it's going to be interesting to hear what transpired at that camp. So be sure to tune in next week as we bring you the latest updates from the Bok camp and looking ahead to the URC final at Croke Park in Dublin the Friday. Guys, thanks again for the chat. It was good. Mike, John, I'll catch you next week again. If you haven't yet, click that like button on our YouTube channel at the Clutch ZA, subscribe, and we'll be back with more Bok and Bulls news in a week's time. Cheers.